Hello and welcome. Yes, it's that time again. We are back talking about greyhounds. Myself and the master, Paul Lawrence. We are back because the Bull Sports Irish Greyhound Derby is kicking off at Shelbourne Park on Friday night. So it's time for these two old codgers to go talking about greyhounds once again. It's been a while, PL. Of course, we were last doing this for the English Derby, and here we are, a few months later, back for the Irish equivalent. But the English Derby will keep coming up. You know, we have to look at the fact that these dogs, a lot of them did make their way to Toaster. Some have been very likely raced since, and they've been brought back slowly but surely. You have to give them a break. 2 Derby campaigns is pretty serious, and there will be people that will avoid dogs that were in Toaster, given the fact that they could be just that bit fresher.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, I spoke to Mark Wallace on Saturday when we was at Monmore, and he said maybe a salient point as well in that the juvenile probably have affected the preparation of proper ARS a little bit. And I think I kind of get the impression that that did for Bocco's Diamond as well, in that there's a bit of a rush to get him there. There was good prize money on offer, but it probably wouldn't have been a normal preparation for the English Derby. So, yeah, it is interesting. I think whenever you look at an anti-post bet for a Derby, you've got to bear in mind it's 6 rounds, and as Graham Holland said earlier in the year, you don't win a derby in the first round. So yeah, it's something to bear in mind. We talk about competition dogs. It's okay, winning a 3-round comp. You've got to do it 6 times. You haven't got to win every round, but you've got to qualify in each round, and that's, I think, really important and a salient point to note.
Yeah, you often look for that dog that's tiptoed through the first 3 rounds and is coming on for each run, and that's often a decent way to look at things. Before we get straight into it and get talking, this will be very much an anti-post pod. But before we do, we're just going to mention a couple of the usual specials. Pod 50, if you're signing up to Matchbook, you bet £50, you'll get it back in free bets. That's well worth your while. And don't forget to check out the Track Club as well. If you base £30 worth of bets over Monday to Thursday, you will get a tenner back on the Friday by way of a free bet. All the details are there on the screen now, but go to their website, check it out, and why not join us here on Matchbook Betting Exchange? Plenty of reasons to do so. Perhaps that €50 or £50 back could be a great way to perhaps build a tank or maybe get involved in the Derby as we were speaking here. Now, PL, let's talk about it, because this time last year we were very, very convinced that it would be a first season greyhound that would win the Derby. That's the strength of last year's youngsters, while the more established dogs were probably gone a bit over the top. This year it's a very different scenario. We are dealing with second season dogs. The top of the market will show you that it's, again, a lot of Graham Holland trained runners, including the sensational winner last year, Bocco's Diamond. Twice did the track record in the competition. He was as good a Derby winner as I can ever remember. He was so good through the competition that he started the final at 130 on. People don't seem to remember that. He's the shortest price Derby winner of all time, and a wet and windy night in Shelbourne Park. Made a couple of mistakes, still managed to come out on top. And a year later, he's around the best price 5-1 PL. Talk to me about Bocco's Diamond.
Yeah, well, I thought he was a good thing at 11-2 and 5-1 to win the English Derby this year. And I say maybe that prep didn't quite go his way, and it almost like, his sandals got a little bit wet, didn't they? Just he wasn't walking on water anymore, and it just shows you that there's a little bit of maybe a vulnerability to him, and he's not 100% invincible. And I don't think that I would want to get involved at that price for the Irish Derby this year. Now, that's not to say that he can't bounce back, and we're going to probably find out a lot more in the first round or 2 rounds, because he probably likes Shelbourne more than he likes Toaster. So, that's something. I'm not writing him off, don't get me wrong, I never do that. I'm just saying, if you're looking at anti-post markets, I was told I was mad to back him at 11-2 for the English Derby in the year, but I just wouldn't do the same now. I got him to the final, and he ran well, but he just hasn't got that same invincibility that he showed in the Irish Derby, which was later in the year last year as well, wasn't it? So he's back to the grindstone once more from that summer campaign for the English Derby now to the August-September campaign for the Irish Derby.
Yeah, here we are. Like it only seems like a couple of weeks ago that it was the English Derby final, but it was June, and here we are now into the later part of August. So he's had that couple of months off, and yeah, I think the problem with Toaster was he just never really seemed to trap properly there. It was never. No. I think like people say he didn't handle the track, and I thought he handled the track perfectly well. It was just a case of he just didn't get loose. He didn't get that chance to bully dogs from the front, which at Shelbourne Park he probably have that better opportunity to do that. Now, he'll still need doing things right. He's facing a top-class field, including a couple of the dogs that, worked hard last year. Cheap Sandwiches, of course.
Yeah.
He was so good in the English Greyhound Derby. He's back. He had a couple of races recently at Shelbourne Park. Didn't fly, it has to be said, but again, he missed the lids. And it will take these dogs a little bit of while to get used to the Irish traps. Now, Bocco's Diamonds had 3 trials in recent weeks. He had a sprint in Cork, which was off the charts, as good a trial as we've ever seen. It was just so good. It was 20, 30 spots underneath the track record. But then went to Shelbourne Park, 28.44. Like, there's greater dogs doing that. And then he did 28.23 last week in Cork. They weren't great trials. I spoke to one of the owners only this morning, and he was a little bit concerned, but he said, most importantly, that Graham Holland's not concerned. He said, we're coming to Derby time now. Don't you worry. He'll be good. And I suppose we have to take it on faith. But as you say, especially those that dip their toe in the water in Toaster might just be a little bit reluctant, thinking that the water's still as cold as it was in Toaster for him. That 5-1 could be very big in a fortnight's time. But a fortnight's a long way away in greyhound racing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point, that. And yeah, as you say, whenever you're basing a bet as well, and Lorraine always tells me this, you've got to base your bet that the man at the end of the lead or the woman at the end of the lead can train a Derby winner. It's not a 3 or 4 round comp. It's a 6-round comp, and there's a massive difference. And Graham Holland can do it. So you have to take that into consideration. As you said, he was about the fastest dog you've ever seen. I don't think he's lost a lot of that speed and pace. He just lost a little bit of probably trapping consistency in Toaster, and that can come back to Shelbourne. We've just yet to really kind of see it, I suppose, in the flesh. But as I say, Graham will keep him tipping away, and I'm sure he'll turn up on the night on Friday. So,
slight correction: the best dog I've ever seen, rather than the fastest dog I've ever seen. There is a slight difference there. We've seen dogs with unbelievable pace that you can name them off, but in terms of professionalism, in terms of doing everything right, I think he's about as professional as we've ever seen, certainly in his run through last year's Derby. We can't just talk about Bocco's Diamond or Cheap Sandwiches. Indeed, there's a Bombay Pat, a shadow there casting over the two of them. And of the 3 of them that ran in the English Greyhound Derby final, he is probably the one that's bounced back best of all. He's trialled very well and won his race at Shelbourne Park a fortnight ago in brilliant fashion. And a dog that is very popular for obvious enough reasons, probably has more chance to recover or make up for his errors at boxes at Shelbourne than he would in Toaster, and yet he led around the corner in the English Greyhound Derby. So here's a dog that we can't be forgetting about either.
No, and I suppose another thing you take into consideration is that he still got there, didn't he, throughout that competition? A lot of people have said, and is there in his videos and his form lines, he's just an inconsistent breaker. But he's got good all-round pace, and even when he kind of hit the front, you probably would have expected him to win the Derby in Toaster, and he didn't. But that still marks him down as a dog to be reckoned with. But it's still the inconsistency at trap rise that can catch him out. But again, in a straight line, a very, very, very fast dog, and it's remarkable again that Graham's got these 3 top class quality greyhounds into the top 3 in the betting, and they're there with every chance. And you're right, 100% right, in that out of the 3 of them, he's actually put in the best recent run that catches the eye. So they're there on merit, and they're there to be beaten.
Let's jump outside of the Riverside Kennels for the moment. You mentioned it briefly earlier on. Proper ARS is going to be one of the English challengers. Mark Wallace is bringing it over. As it happens, Ballymac Axel, like, he's as good as an English challenger. He's going to be trained by Mert Lahey through the competition. And So Cool, a dog who won very, very well the other night at Hove. Maybe not the best preparation in terms of, if you didn't bring him over and give him a trial, he's going to run in the opening round for Pat Buckley. But let's count the three of them as English challengers for the moment. Obviously, Proper ARS is the one to beat of those three, but Ballymac Axel is very talented, and I think So Cool is certainly going the right way. It's great to see it, and it makes a big difference to the competition.
Yeah, it does. And as I say, I mentioned that to Mark when I spoke to him on Saturday. It was a reasonable trial, and he definitely ran off out the second bend, and he left a lot on the track. So there's no dangers. He can improve time wise. I think he's staying, or they're staying with Matthews, aren't they? So that's the right way. I don't think it's a good idea to keep travelling backwards and forwards. So I think that's a plus. I said to Mark, it's a bit disappointing in the Derby, and he said he just thought that he'd done too much too soon in the juvenile. So I think maybe it's that little bit of a kind of prep going into Shelbourne. I think he's just such a fast dog that I think he will go deep, and I hope he goes deep, because again, it will make the Irish Derby, wasn't it? As the Irish coming over to Toaster is the same. So yeah, let's hope that he puts in a good series of runs, and we could get him into the final.
Yeah, like, obviously it's not a year ago, it's whatever, 10 months ago since March on Freddie produced such a big run in the opening round, and he would go on to a Derby semi-final. Very fast greyhound. Obviously he's not back. He's had his issues this year. Probably didn't turn into the dog we were hoping he would be. Some of those issues I think he picked up in last year's Irish Greyhound Derby, but it did make such a difference. And it's not even so much on the night, it's just in the days leading up to it. It gives those in the UK just something more to focus their attention on, rather than what they hear us talking about. I know most of them are probably au fait with the dogs that ran in the English Greyhound Derby, but in terms of flying your flag, it makes a big difference. It's something that sort of adds a bit of juice to it all.
Yeah, without being a forlorn hope, as you say. And Ballymac Axel's the same in that he's a good sort of strong running dog as well. So a decent enough competition dog. So yeah, that'll be interesting as well. So yeah, I think it just adds to the flavour it all, really.
We've spoken about a lot of dogs here, or a few dogs, about 7 or 8 dogs at this stage, and all second season greyhounds. We still have to mention the likes of Seven Beach, who's a third season greyhound. There are a few of them there as well who are running as well as ever. But we will get around to some of the youngsters, some of the young dogs that are sort of first season greyhounds. Anything in particular catch your eye of the younger set? The Ballymac Stud of this world, Magical Major, any more?
Yeah, I do like Magical Major. You've mentioned him, so I will touch him. And he was the first bet I had, actually. I backed him at 50s yesterday. So he's a dog I like. And of course, his brother as well is over here now with Kevin Hutton on a raid for the Romford Puppy Cup. I was looking at his trial today. I think it was about 5 spots off the sprint clock. He did a 23.63, I think, at Romford as well. Magical Luca. So Magical Major is a dog that I really like. And I think he's got good all-round pace. He's still probably not quite the finished article, if you like, but the raw pace is there, and I think he stays well enough. I was actually surprised that Magical Luca didn't go for the Derby. I actually tried to back him, Magical Luca, I think, when he broke the clock in the first round of the Tralee 500 race he was in. And I couldn't get the price I wanted, and I sulked a bit and didn't back him. So it's probably that's a big plus to start off with, really.
I would have my suspicions there, PL, in a sense where I suspect he was given a trial, and I'd say he's probably just not getting home. And I'd say that's why he's in the UK with a crack at Romford. You said yourself, like, if he's doing the sprint, close to the sprint clock in Romford, like, look at some of the razor sharp greyhounds that have raced over that trip over the years. Like, that tells you just how sharp he is. Now, I wish Major had the same level of sharpness as Luca, but I think that's why Luca's not there. And Major, I'd say whatever we've seen of him thus far, we're only scratching the surface.
Yeah, I think so. I think, as I say, I do think he's work in progress, and I think he's going through the line well. So I don't think 550 will worry him too much. But as I say, you just look at the breeding, and the mother stayed really well. So that's why I thought Luca would stay. You know, I saw him in the Dundalk competition, and he was just awesome early pace, and then in Tralee, and he just looks a special greyhound. And I'm surprised because Patrick likened him to Good News. So I just thought it was stamped that he would go for the Irish Derby. But how wrong
I
am I?
travelled back. I travelled back from the English Greyhound Derby, and I'd say from the point where I left the hotel to the point where I got to Ireland and got back to my car, 3 people had said to me, "That's a fair pup of Guilfoyle's." We're talking of Luca. At which time 3 of them said to me, each of them in different separate conversations, said, "I believe he has won 5 lengths faster at home." A few weeks later, Magical Major appeared and was backed ahead of the unraced stake. One of the firms were offering prices on it, and he was backed not just for the unraced stake, but for the Derby. So I suggest that this fellow has been showing unbelievable pace and promise at home, and I hope we see it. I'll hold my hands up too. I backed him as well. He was my second bet for this Derby. I've had a nibble at a dog a couple of months ago that has since change of name and a change of owner and is now with Pat Buckley, Hackney Corner, who was left corner back. That was just speculative at the time, hoping that he might find 2 or 3 lengths with experience and age. As it happens, he's been sort of lightly raced since, took a tumble as well. But a recent trial suggests he's going to go well, and I think it is a decent first round trial. But Magical Major would be certainly one that I'd be putting up to people.
Yeah, it was just a dog that really caught my eye. I really liked him. And the other dog I really liked, and that was from, I kept telling you when we were looking ourselves, obviously I was in contact with Patrick Guilfoyle because we bought Turn the Magic on and fetched him over here. But whilst I was looking at the form and a lot of the unraced stakes in Ireland, I was looking in Tralee, and Droopy's Patriot was the dog that really got me going. Even in the first round, I think he might have even finished 4th in the first round and qualified. But he's a dog I really, really like, and so I backed him, and that he's 20 to 1, and I backed him for the most. I'm just a little bit concerned about his Ben running because actually I did ring Robert, and he said he'd had a little bit of a problem with him trying to aim him at the produce stakes. But you know, I thought he showed all sorts of pace in Dundalk, and the Bar One is such a, you know, it's a fantastic competition. It's such a good 400-yard burst of pace as well in just 2 bends. It's incredible, and I just thought he might have just been a little bit careful on the bends. But that's not to say, you know, he's already had a sprint trial at Shelburne on his card anyway. So I'm just hoping that it's probably just a little bit in his head, maybe, rather than actually anything physical. But for a fast dog, a pacey dog, little bit of a niggle in the back of my mind. Will he stay the 550? But I just think he's got class written all over him, and Droopy's Patriot would be my main selection, really.
I recently spoke to Robert about him. I think this is the kennel, the main kennel hope. And you consider they have Carrick Scholesy and Toolmaker King and others thrown at this competition. I think they're pretty confident in his ability to get the 550. And it was notable that he was cut across the board during the week. I know those involved in the kennel did get involved. So I think confidence is high with Droopy's Patriot. I do agree with everything you said about him. I thought he was careful in the opening bend in Dundalk. Sort of predicted that Broadstrand Sid could have a problem if he doesn't clear him by the corner in Dundalk, because the Patriot dog was just minding himself at that fraction, stepping off the bend a little bit. And that's exactly what happened in the final. The two of them clashed. Now, as it happens, like, it's not too often you'll have a Broadstrand Sid against you going to the opening bend. I think he'd be fine in Shelburne Park if he gets loose into the corner, which, given the early speed and pace he's shown in his career to date, I think that's sort of a given that he'll get at least 1 or 2 clear runs in the early rounds. Confidence should be high for him going forward then after that. And I certainly wouldn't put people off. I think the value's gone. At 16-20s, I think I'd like the 25-33s, but as it happens, that's disappeared, and he's not for me at that price. But as I said, I certainly wouldn't put anyone off backing him. Of the other dogs that are around that sort of price, Callaway, Kinnigear, I think he's priced on the fact that his liabilities. He did a couple of massive trials at Tralee earlier in the year, and I know he came in for strong support. In fact, like, he's now 16-20-1. With the sponsors, as late as last week, he was 10-1 clear second favourite. They were just minding themselves. They didn't want any more of him. They've pushed him out to 16 now that the final field is known, but they didn't want to know any more of him. They took that much about him at the start of the year before he even raced. Now, I asked the question, is he going to find an extra yard to the corner because he needed to? So I don't think there's any real juice in the 16-20-1 out there about Callaway, Kinnigear. Lenny's Desire, Paul, I think we're both big fans of this dog. A real Paul Hennessy type greyhound.
Yes.
Keeps him for the major competitions. When he gets rolling, he can really run. Maybe lacks a yard into the opening corner, but when he hits it, he can go into the opening corner. So yeah. I think in terms of engine, I think he's as fast as probably any dog in the competition. And at 25-1, I wouldn't put anyone off Lenny's Desire. Balnabola Joe, a dog with huge ability. He's around the same price. We saw what he can do in the early rounds of the English Derby, and he's been likely enough racing in recent times. I would say that Pat has been keeping an eye on this, competition going. Let's get him there fresh and hopefully well.
Yeah, I mean, Kinnigear is a dog that he's a good competition dog because he's so strong, but I never think you're ever going to see him lead a race. So he needs to get lucky all the time. But he's got a big engine. Balnabola Joe is a dog that I really like. Of course, he was second to Droopy's Patriot in the Tralee Unraced. That's where he kind of caught my eye again during that competition, and I loved him at Toaster. But probably consistency is a little bit of his Achilles heel. And Lenny's Desire is another one that kind of bit hit and miss at the boxes. And he did get tangled up, didn't he, in Toaster? But other than that, he's got plenty of pace. So again, probably a good competition dog because he can get himself out of a hole as well because of his stamina. He's not a one-trick pony. So yeah, they're all those dogs that could even improve. They could even go forward. And of course, they've got Hennessy training, Buckley training, all that. Owen McKenna. They're all dogs, all trainers that can train a Derby winner. So
there's very few derbies these days where you see owner trained dogs going in. They're all trained by the big boys and the big girls, and each and every one of those dogs we've mentioned are very much so. I'm just going to name a few more. Paul, stop me if you want to reference any of them. We have to mention a couple of dogs that ran so well in the English Derby as very likely race greyhounds. They ran very well in the Kirby. Solomio, Bubbly, Charger. Lots to like about them. They showed enough, certainly around Limerick and Toaster, to suggest that a 550-yard campaign around Shelburne Park would be right up their street.
Yeah, Solomio was obviously a dog that showed himself really well in the English Derby. As he, again, to win a Kirby or get to the final of a Kirby, you need to be a good dog because you need to do it on a consistent basis. It's these 5-round comps, even in Ireland, they're not easy. They're not easy to get to the final, and he did just that. And again, Peter Cronin's he's hit the crossbar in a number of English derbies with really top quality grounds. I still think I probably would have put. I know he's got a wide draw, but I think I'd have put him a middle on him because I think he's better from off the fence. A bit like with Robert Gleeson, he put the middle on Scalzi and he drew 5 and he kind of moved in a little bit from 5. But I think it just fetches them out the boxes. And I think you need to probably do that where you don't get trapped on the inside. A dog's coming across you going in into the first turn. So I know in Ireland, I think there's a bit of a reticence to put a middle on. You either kind of want to be 1 or 6, but I actually think that it was a good move because I think Carrot Scalzi is another dog that I like, and again another first season dog. Toolmaker King, again of Roberts. He won the Cork Unraced that we were third in with Turn the Magic on. So he's another dog that I like, and I think he'll see 550 out well. He's got a good deal of trapping ability and good all round pace. So I think he could go deep in this Derby. There's some of those kind of, as I said to you, they're still unexposed. There's still a little bit more to come from some of these first season dogs, Ian. So
it's worth
it makes
remembering.
it really interesting.
It's worth remembering at this time last year, Cheap Sandwiches was that type of greyhound. Yes, he'd run the Lee Strand over 550 at Tralee, but he'd come to Shelburne. He had a number of 4-bend races, albeit 525 yards. It wasn't quite getting around the corner, getting the clear run. And it was the switch to 550 yards that just freed him, just got that bit of early speed, got room to race, and got loose. And all of a sudden, with confidence and improvement, he suddenly turned into one of the top 3 or 4 greyhounds of the last year.
Yeah,
that could be a similar situation with the likes of a Toolmaker King. It's taken him a while at Shelburne. The other night was his first win in Dublin, having gone through a juvenile derby campaign. When he's on the bunny, he looks stronger than when he's not on the bunny, but that's just inexperience. That's puppy stuff.
Yeah.
Now, Carrick Scholes, I agree with you. The middle seed made such a difference to me the other night in terms of trapping. I got a text the following Monday morning from Robert. Simply was, Carrick Scholesy, keep the middle or back to inside. And I agree with you. I don't see the harm in trying him in the middle one more time. You have a free shot at it, because in the opening round, you need to be unlucky. You know what I mean? To get knocked out for to qualify. Yeah. You get another look at him from the middle. All I know is that he's a better chance of winning from the middle trapping than he does from the inside not trapping. So I think it's fine with him. And he's had that few races now where he's gained experience. And it's not like he's diving inwards like he looked like he was in his first 2 or 3 starts around Kilkenny. Now he's sort of taking that gradual route. And if there's room, he'll move in. If there's not, he probably won't move in. I like him a lot. I think he's a hell of a good dog.
And I think also as well, Lynn, it's almost like Shelbourne suits him better than it did in Kilkenny. Just the track suits him better. So, and again, I never disagree with trying something, and I think that's what Robert's done. And I think you need to do that sometimes to see it with your own 2 eyes. And as you say, the beauty of it is you can change your seeding if you want to. So there's always that to it. And I think he's done the right thing. And I'd say, yeah, you're right. Just let's have another look at him now and go from there. Because if he's going to use that brute early pace and it's going to fetch him out the traps, there's not going to be too many dogs that are going to go with him to the turn. So, yeah, and I do like him as a dog. I think he's a fast dog.
They are the type of dogs that I would normally favour in a derby coming into this. Those dogs that still have that room for improvement, that have shown a touch of brilliance. Like it's hard to think how long ago it was since his sensational debut at Kilkenny, Carrick Scholesy. And he's won races since. He won the Summer Cup at Shelburne Park, but it felt in his last race that he was finally starting to fulfill the promise he showed that first night in Kilkenny. And I suppose that's what people will be holding on to, the fact that, now we know he's matured that bit, and this is what he can do in Shelburne. He's done 29.33 for the 550 yards. If you do 29.33 outside of a derby campaign, that's racing. It's very rare that anything close to that is posted during the year outside of the derby. So who's to say he won't be doing 3 lengths faster in 3 weeks' time? And that can certainly put him in the mix. He's just twice been a Derby semi-finalist. He's just the most remarkably consistent dog. He's won the Gold Cup this year. He's won the Select Stakes, and he won the Race of Champions over the 550 at Tralee. All short competitions, 2 runs. Well, the Gold Cup is a bit more, 4 runs. The other 2 are 2-run competitions. And I suppose that's where he's at now. He's nearly 4 years of age. But seems to be running as well as ever, and he's certainly a dog to keep on side in the first 2 to 3 rounds. See how he's going.
And the thing is, he has got Derby early pace, hasn't he? It's just probably him quite last in home, and as you say, then you've got a last home for 6 rounds. But I think when you're drawn against him, you're kind of thinking, geez, if you need to be prominent, if 7 Beach in the contest, then you've got a bit of a tussle on your hands.
Yeah, you sure do. God, I can't believe I haven't mentioned this fella until now. The Laddie Da, English Derby champion 2024, ran the most remarkable race in the English Derby final. recently returned with a flying trial at Shelburne Park over the sprint trip. Again, age is against him. This could be his third Derby campaign, but we know how fast he is.
Yeah, and a good competition dog. He can do it both ends, can't he? He can flash out as he showed in the first round of the English Derby, but he can also come from off the pace as well. He's just a fast dog, and he's got a big engine, and he's a good competition dog, and he's trained by a man that could win a Derby. So there's a lot of plus points to Da.
There sure are. I'll keep going through them. If you want, Rural Pest has to get a mention. Found himself a bit in the Juvenile Derby. Has always shown loads of pace and power. Was just not quite getting into the corner, or was not quite driving the corner, I think I would say, rather than getting into it. That seemed to come in the Juvenile Derby. Now he's very unlucky. Got clipped into the bend by Toolmaker King, who just caught his backside into the Juvenile Derby. Found himself on the outside of two dogs, and that was that. But I think he'll be a player in this year's Greyhound Derby, no question about it. Shanahy Boomer won the Maiden Derby. He's a professional type dog. Might find a few too fast from Ballymac Stud. Very well thought of Greyhound. You get the sense that the kennel really liked this fellow Ballymac Stud, and when Liam Dowling liked one, you should pay attention. Ballymac Danica, Ballymac Tibet, the aforementioned Toolmaker King, Lemon Joey, a Project Stakes winner, Magical Mag has been flying, Boyle Sports Bob, and then down to the likes of Droopy's Deploy, amongst others. Hope's Teddy, an Easter Cup winner at 66-1. Is there anything else you want to get into, PL, before we maybe take a few selections off you?
Yeah, well, all those dogs you've mentioned there, they're all greyhounds that can go deep in the Derby. They're all quick dogs, and that's why I think that it probably should be an 8-1 the field Derby, because there are a lot of dogs that can do some running. And you mentioned a dog there that he surprised me, because Ballymac Tibet was a young dog to put in an English Derby, and it was almost like, I suppose, Liam fetched over the couple in the squad, and he thought, well, I'll fetch this fella, and he must have seen a glimmer of, this dog can run, but it was his braking that was letting down. All of a sudden, he went to Shelburne Park. He went bang bang, didn't he? Two weeks on the trot, and he looked a serious greyhound. And then when it mattered, he kind of reverted to not starting again. But if he can get into a rhythm, this dog, he's again a strong running dog that can keep qualifying. About 50-1, you could do a lot worse than that. And being a wide runner as well, he's going to keep getting his draw as well, Ian. So he's definitely an interesting contender. He just surprised me that when he trapped, and he did it twice on the bounce, I thought, well, that wasn't a fluke then. So yeah, it's very, very interesting greyhound. And I think, again, if you're looking for value plays, you could do a lot worse than him.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. Those are the dogs that haven't quite put it together yet. They're the ones you keep an eye out for. Like, you think back at this time of the year, over the years, like, I remember Skywalker Puma that came in for late support. Chunks of money came in for Skywalker Puma. We could all see that the engine was there, but it was a case of just putting it all together. And he did. He discovered that 550-yard Shelburne Park is the difference. And there are plenty of dogs there that will come on a great amount for the racing they've had thus far, but the switch to the 550 yards and the freedom of Shelburne Park will make a huge difference to them. Now, a fascinating contest, or a fascinating Derby, no question about it. And we've mentioned probably 2025 of the top end of the market there. PL, we're going to get a few selections off you. This is going to be probably our shortest podcast of the next few weeks, because next week we'll obviously have a slight review, talk about some of the best displays. We'll be maybe throwing in one or two heat winners. For this week, we'll just focus on the anti-post, because there's so much to get involved in, so much to take in and just get to grips with, that often you need to take the opening round for yourself. And is there, firstly, have you've got involved in a few, or where are
I have? I had to. I said don't get too involved too soon, and I've gone for Patriot. I backed Patriot today, and I've backed him at 20s, and I know he was 33s, but I kind of missed that, and I didn't really speak to Robert about any kind of issues. But when I saw him in Dundalk, I thought, yeah, this dog's got. I know he's got loads of speed, so I've gone for Droopy's Patriot as a main selection. Magical Major is a dog that I like. He caught my eye in that comp that he was in for the youngsters at Shelburne. So I got him at 50s. I listened to you and Barry last night, so I had to join in with Hackney Corner, and of course he's with Pat Buckley, so I've had a little bet on him for the interest, and I've had a bet a massive, massive price because again I keep referring to the Tralee Juvenile, but I saw a fast dog called Ballymac Rapid in it. And this little girl was matching strides with him, but she was matching strides with him in the wrong way, really. And Flashing Lilac is the young lady in question, and she has not had a lot of racing, and she came back, and you could say, well, Cheap Sandwiches didn't run his race, but she ran away from him coming home, and I think she's got all sorts of pace, and she cannot be 100 to 1 in my eyes. She's had a season, so there's no worries about that. And I've had a little nibble. You don't need a lot on it at hundreds, but I've had a little nibble on Flashing Lilac.
It's actually scary, you know that. It's definitely scary how we think. Flashing Lilac would be my choice for a top pitch. I really liked her the other night. You know, Cheap Sandwiches came, headed her briefly at halfway, and she kicked again. She beat some 3.5 lengths. Now, you say that to people thinking of the bare form. It's Cheap Sandwiches, you know, she's running away from. It was a brilliant performance from her. She's obviously had her seasonal rest. It was her first win, her first career win. Hard to believe, but she's only had a handful of races. I agree with you. She is extremely talented, and she would be one that I would put up also, and maybe a small each way play. But I think the top pitch market, I think she'd really be of interest to me.
Yeah.
Like you, Magical Major, I'm going to put up as my main selection. I think we've only really scratched the surface with him. I think he's a monster. I think in the opening round, he's got Hopes Teddy in trap 3. He's in 4. If he traps, I think we could see something special from him. And I hope that he produces what I think he's capable of during this derby. Still very young, quite raw. He looked a little bit lost trying to pick up and get around Ballymac Kamala the last time. She's no slouch, and he sort of found himself in behind her on the same racing
good yardstick,
just not confident enough in making up his mind yet, but that will come. And there's nothing like a derby campaign to straighten you out. If he does get loose in the opening round or two, we could see a very different dog by the third round. So Magical Major is my main selection. I do like Balnabola Joe. I would like to see him have one run just to see how he goes. Now, the risk there is the 33 to 1, 25 to 1 could quickly disappear if he produces what we know he's capable of.
Yeah.
And so we might have a small nibble at that. I don't have to back Hackney Corner. I think given the fact that he had the fall and the few issues, I might leave him alone now. I've had my few quid on at bigger prices, so I'm happy with that.
His trials have been good, haven't they? His trials
have been good. To be fair. There's not a lot to him. You know, he's not a huge dog. He's only in the 60-odd pounds. But he can run. He does it all. He starts, he stays. He's proven over the 550 yards at Shelburne Park. He was fancied to win that final of the Champion 550 that Balnabola Joe actually won. So, you know, that bodes well. Carrick Scholesy, I'm a big fan of. I thought 40 to 1 was too big about him. I thought he should be a shorter price than some of the dogs ahead of him. And then Flashing Lilac. They were my sort of 4 or 5 against the field. And one dog I haven't mentioned, I might still take another look at him, is The Other Wild. The Other Wild looked very good earlier in the year, winning the unraced stake down at Clonmel. And I think he had a couple of issues since then. He recently came back at Shelburne, won well off the front. When I get the sense market moves and all the talk suggested he probably badly needed the run. He beat a talented field, kept binding. The next night got badly done, but there's a lot of talent there. So The Other Wild is one as well at big prices that you could be interested in getting nibbling in. But yeah, listen, I could keep going and going and going. There's young dogs like Glengar Silent and, you know, a couple of others from Cork that have been running very well lately that you could mention, but too many to mention at this stage. And again, we'll have a better guide of things a week from now, PL, when we've seen the opening round. We have 24 heats spread over the 2 nights, 12 on Friday, 12 on Saturday. You getting over at any point?
For the final, yeah. That's the aim at the moment.
I'll reserve a spot at the bar for you, right?
Because Lorraine's full-time job now, she's I think that's the last. We're having a bit of a jolly up. We're going to the Tattersall sales prior to the Derby, then we're going to the Derby, and then we're going to the Goff sales after the Derby. So it's a bit of a Pompey Ventures team up as well. So yeah, so it'll be good.
Things are going well if you're going to try to buy racehorses, PL.
No, well, the lads do that, don't they? The Pompey Ventures essentially is a horse racing syndicate, but they asked me to buy them a couple of dogs, and we've still got Fratton Bark. He's with Craig Morris now, and we've got Turn the Magic on with Maxine Locke. He's in a Poppy final on the Gold Cup card at Munmore on Saturday. So yeah,
he's a very, very fast greyhound. You'll be looking at something like Yarmouth Derby next year or something like that with him. That's the type of race he will do. Something with a long run to the corner. He has blistering pace if you can only get the trapping right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that'll come. I'm sure it will. It's just getting probably. He's had a little bit of a touch of cramping issue, but we're getting there with him. And again, you know, he's work in progress, but he's another one who's got a big engine, so that's always nice.
Yeah. I noticed you didn't tip up proper ARS. Well done for not flying the flag.
No, I do it. You listen. You've known me long enough now. I'd just say what I see, and no, I wouldn't. I hope he goes deep for Mark and Mike. You know, but it's just I've just got to go with what I think, and like you always say, you can't go too many. So that they were my four. You know, Patriot, Magical Major. I listened to you with Hackney Corner because I do like him actually, and Flashing Lilac. So they're what I've had here at the moment. And I must admit, I thought, shall I just have a little win bet on Bayanabola Joe just in case he gets to the final? I haven't got anything on him, so I'll probably do that.
You're always sick going, I don't know. I think it's safe to say we've both gone with promise rather than, yes, they have proven ability, but they're not firmly established. They are very much open to improvement. And I suppose when you're going to a competition like that, that's something you can always say to people. Pick something that can still improve.
Yeah. Yeah.
PL, a pleasure as always. We'll be doing this for the next 5 weeks. And this is the start of it. The Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby gets underway at Shelburne Park on Friday night. You can watch it all live. I think SIS are covering it, sisracing.tv, through the whole competition, every single heat. For those watching in Ireland, it will be live final night anyway, maybe semi-final night as well. I could be wrong on that one, but we'll have more details on that as the Derby goes ahead. We've given you a few selections, so hopefully they'll turn into profitable selections going forward. And the anti-post bet market will be up there on matchbook.com today. Make sure you get involved. The beauty of backing the dogs with the betting exchange here at Matchbook is that you can lay off at various points if you so wish to, or like PL, just ride it out to the finish and pray. Keep those fingers crossed. But that's it from us on the Irish Derby podcast here on Matchbook Betting Exchange. Don't forget, Pod 50 if you are signing up as a new member to Matchbook. Bet £50, get £50 back as a free bet. And again, don't forget to check out the Track Club for those of you already with Matchbook. Bet £30 over the Monday to Thursday and get a tenner free bet on Friday for the weekend's action if you hold on to it for that long, or be like me and just use it straight away on something in Swindon or Hove or somewhere on the Friday. But that's it from us on the Matchbook Betting Exchange Irish Greyhound Derby podcast. We'll see you a week from now.